What is happening, guys? Cowboy here, and welcome to the first deck building video of many to come for Magic the Gathering Arena. So I've been wanting to get these out for a while and kind of been holding off since we have the Ravnica Allegiance block dropping in 2 weeks, but I figured, what the hell, this deck is pretty much just delicious the way it is. I don't think I'm going to make many changes to it, and so it was a great choice for the first deck. Now, just to give you guys an expectations with these videos, I'm basically going to be doing them as I have time. Each video is going to go in depth, looking through every single card that I use in a particular deck, explaining why I use it, where the deck kind of falls into the meta, and then in addition to some potential replacements that you could run in the deck instead. In addition to that, make sure to check the link to the Discord down in the video description below. The Discord has every single deck that I feature, as well as some that I haven't featured yet, pinned, along with a bunch of other folks talking Magic the Gathering, discussing things and whatnot. So if you're looking for more people to discuss Magic with, it's a great resource. And without further ado, let's jump in. So this is my Gruul Dinos deck. I started this deck off as kind of an offshoot of the Stompy Clompy deck that we made on stream, the 3-color Dinos. And I found this to just be a lot more consistent, at least pushing up ladder. If I had to classify this, it'd be a mid-range deck. This deck usually ramps up to its peak around turn 5 or 6, and at most times either you've already won by then or you see a concede hit the table. So to start things off with our 1-drops, we have 4 Reckless Rage. Now Reckless Rage is going to be great removal in a Dino deck. You know, we're doing 4 damage and we're taking 2. The only character that can't tank that is going to be an Otepec. Droverwelt's buffed can tank it, Ripjaw can tank it, Alpha, his token, Atali, Carnage, Galta, all of that stuff. So Reckless Rage works in very nicely as a cheap removal in this deck, and it also serves as a bonus to proc our Enrage counters, which we'll get into later. Moving into our 2-drops, this is the most important part of this deck. We got Otepec Huntsmaster with 4, 3 Drover of Mighty, and 4 Thunderherd Migration. Now, the main way this deck is going to be played is usually turn 2, you're going to drop one of these. Turn 3, you're going to drop a Ripjaw Raptor. And Ripjaw Raptor on turn 3 is a really big threat. Basically, he either gets answered with, you know, they're going to exile him, they're going to murder him, they're going to hit him with a cast down, and if they don't, the game's usually in your hand by that point. He is a very big threat to be on the board on turn 3, and that's why this turn 2 drop is going to be so important. Otepec can make sure he comes out turn 3, Drover can, Thunderherd can. Now, as for the split up here, I went for 3 with Drover as opposed to 4 for Otepec, because I find being able to give my dinos haste is a lot more important than just being able to generate mana. So that's why I did that delineation. And then Thunderherd I picked as 4 just because Thunderherd's a really nice card that you can drop on the board. If you have a dino, it only costs 2. If you don't, it costs 3. But being able to fetch that land out, once again, just gives us another turn 2 drop to make sure we can hit Ripjaw Raptor on turn 4. Of course, moving on to turn 3, I technically consider this a 1-drop, but it's Savage Stomp. If we have a dino, it costs 2 less to cast. And we're mainly going to be using this along with Ripjaw Raptor to proc his Enrage, but also it is a great removal tool because, I mean, Raptor, he's 4-4, or he's 4-5, he's 4-4, he's 12-12, he's 7-6, he's 6-6. Not much is going to win in a fight with a creature like that. So this gives us 8 instances of removal, which is something you usually don't see in creature-heavy mid-range decks like this. You know, like you think Green Stompy, it's usually about overwhelming your opponent with value, and we're getting that value here, but we have excellent synergy with this removal because it ties in well to our value of our Ripjaw, giving us a draw engine. And which brings us to Ripjaw Raptor. Now, Ripjaw, I would say, is the single most important card in making a dino deck like this work. Whether you want to play 2-color dinos or 3-color dinos, you gotta have 4 Ripjaw Raptors. As a 4-drop, 4-5 is a huge body. You're going to avoid stuff like Lava Coil. You're going to avoid stuff like that damn red-white spell that makes you do damage equal to your power to your toughness. You know, either they have a hard removal, like a cast down or a murder, or this is a massive body on the field. And on top of that, this usually it's a big tempo breaker, because nobody wants to give you card draw. So you play a 4-5 body. I mean, perfect example, let's say you're against a red deck, and they're going to attack with a 2-1 or a 2-2. You know, they're going to attack with that 2-2. You're going to take damage and draw a card. Then they're going to hit it with a lightning bolt. You're going to draw a card. So you just got 2 cards out of them to kill your Ripjaw Raptor and you got 2 draws for it in the process. I mean, honestly, he's one of my favorite cards in the current meta. He just has insane value because of that. You're getting draw, and a 4/5 is an excellent body. So especially on turn 3, he's a very, very big threat. Moving on from there into our 5 drops, we have 3 Regisaur Alphas and then 2 Vivians. Now, Regisaur is also extremely high value as a dino. At the cost of 5, you're getting a 4/4, you're getting a 3/3 token with Trample, and you're giving other dinosaurs haste. And the reason we want 3 of him as we move into the end game is Odapek is obviously going to be vulnerable to things like Soot, things like Fiery Cannonade, Golden Demise, but we still need haste. Haste and swinging with our dinos same turn is what makes them so powerful, and that's where Regisaur Alpha comes in. Either they have to remove him, so he's a great removal bait, fishing out removals so that our big boys can come out uncontested, and if they leave him alone, then we're going to haste out the big boys. So it's a win-win no matter what, and at the cost of 5, that is immense value. Moving down from there, we have our 2 Vivians. Now, you could argue that it's good to have 3 Planeswalkers. So far, I've found that I do pretty well with just having 2. If I had a third, I'd probably toss her in exchange for one of my Galtas. But Vivian works very well in this deck. The only time this deck is ever going to really have kind of a stalemate is maybe against something like Golgari. And getting out Vivian, I mean, if you get your -8 off, it's basically a GG condition. You know, an army of dinosaurs that have 2/2, Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible, that's an instant win. On top of that, being able to fetch through the top 4 cards of your library is going to ensure that you're getting the dinos that you need. We have the Artifact, Enchantment, or Creature with Flying Protection, so she's great there. All in all, she is just an excellent Planeswalker that synergizes very well in an aggressive mid-range deck like this. Now we move into our big boys. Now all these 6+ drops I would consider your game enders. We have 3 Atalis, 3 Carnage Tyrants, and then 2 Galtas. Now starting with Atali, I would say Atali is probably my favorite card in this deck. Even though he has to attack to proc his effect, I have seen absolutely crazy plays perform because of an Atali, and this is why we have so much focus around haste. We have the 4 Odapeks and we have the 3 Regisaurs, and the basic gist here is with the right setup, you know, let's to typical play, just to theorize this for you. Let's say we drop turn 2, we get out our Odapek, okay. Turn 3, we play another land and we get out Ripjaw Raptor. So we now have our 3 lands out, 4 because of Odapek. Turn 5, we drop out a Drover, another Odapek, or a turn 4, excuse me, a Thunderherd, Drover, whatever the case is. And then turn 5, you can drop out a hasted Atali. And that's where this card becomes so powerful. Either they have an instant answer for Atali or it's done. Because of how powerful that exile mechanic is, especially with a deck like yours. I've swung with Atalis and I've seen, you know, I'll pull a Vraska's Contempt out of the opponent's deck and a Carnage Tyrant from mine. So getting to cast a free Carnage Tyrant, getting to cast a free removal spell, a free creature, Atali is just a great resource. Even if he dies, just getting him on the board to swing for 1 turn, he more than makes up for his value. You're paying 6 to get 2 free cards, and every now and then you're gonna get land, and it's gonna fall a little bit short. But trust me, when you get the big card with him, when you get something that's extra spicy that's coming out of the deck, that makes him all the worthwhile. And on top of that, he's a badass looking Spinosaurus. So really aesthetically pleasing card at that. Moving on from there, Carnage Tyrant. You know, what needs to be said? This is the Stompy of our current meta. This guy is a monster. He costs 6. He can't be countered. He's trample, hexproof. He is huge, and he wins games. That's all that needs to be said. Like, he wins games. I don't need to explain Carnage Tyrant. And then moving on from there, we have Galta the Primal Hunger. Now, Galta is also a game ender, especially if you're against folks that don't have instant removal or tapped out. You know, Galta's ability of costing X less. I mean, you know, you get an Odapek, Drover, a Ripjaw, and something out of the field. You can 2-drop and haste a Galta in, and a 12/12 haste trample. That's a game ender. Now we only have 2 Galtas, mainly because despite being a huge powerhouse, he is super vulnerable to removal. And I know Atali is also vulnerable to removal, but I prefer the exile mechanic of Atali compared to just the 12/12 trample of Galta. you know, getting those cards with Atali I find gives me more value than the 12-12, but Galta is good. Now, obviously this deck is going to be pretty intensive on wild cards. You know, we have uncommon, 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 rare, rare, mythic, rare, mythic, rare. You know, we don't have any commons here. Oh, don't forget our root-bound crags. We got 4 root-bound crags, 13 forests, and 7 mountains. So it is a very heavy deck in terms of what you need to make this function. If you're on a budget, some things to consider are, as I mentioned, Ripjaw Raptor should be your #1 priority. You know, even at the start of the game, you have a couple rare wild cards. Ripjaw Raptor, if you want to run dinos, he should be your most important dino. Aside from him, I'm just going to pull up dinosaurs and go through some other stuff that you could function in here. Where they go. Charging Monstrosaur isn't that good, but he's a good value dino. At the cost of 5 Trample Haste, he can definitely do really well early on, especially when you don't have much available. In addition to that, doing something that's more on the cheaper end, if you want to be even cheaper, I like to go for a Needletooth Raptor over something like Frilled. Frilled's nice, but to be honest, 3-2 gets nuked easily, and then it's just going to do 2 damage. So I feel like you play him, he gets nuked, whereas this, even though it's 4-drop, you get a 2-2 body, and if you can proc the Enrage, dealing 5 damage, that's enough to kill just about anything on the board. Charging Tuscadon, another decent choice. People really have to block this card, otherwise they're just going to take 4-4 to the face. I would not recommend Burning Sun's Avatar. Now this is one that you're actually given in the starter red deck, and the reason for that is paying 6, and then you get a 6-6 body. Okay, we're dealing 3 to face or Planeswalker, and 3 to 1 creature. Now, all in all, that sounds kind of nice, but at the same time, for the same value as Burning Sun's Avatar, we could use an Atali or a Carnage Tyrant. Now, I'd much rather have Can't Be Countered Trample Hexproof, or I attack and I exile 2 cards and play them for free, than a 6-6 that doesn't have Trample with a baked-in Lightning Bolt and an extra Lightning Bolt that hits player or Planeswalker. There's just not enough value there, and ultimately, you know, you need to be able to go over your opponents with dinos. That's how they win. And looking at our dinos here, we have a 12-12 that has Trample. He's going right through him. We have a 7-6 that has Trample. He's going right through him. Atali doesn't have Trample, but he's giving us 2 cards to play for free. Ripjaw doesn't have Trample, but if they block it, we're getting to draw a card. So you kind of see what's going on here. You know, Regisaur creates one with Trample and gives everything else haste. We have really good value on all of our dinosaurs here, and that same value isn't exhibited by Burning Sun's Avatar, in my opinion. Some other stuff that's decent when you're early on in the game. Commune with Dinosaurs, a very excellent common card here to run. You know, being able to look at 5 cards, fetch a dinosaur, or fetch a land card. This can be a really powerful tool, especially if you're low on uncommons. You could easily substitute this in exchange for Thunderherd Migration. The main reason we run Thunderherd Migration is because this is going to let us basically cast the spell out and get it onto the field tapped. So that ensures we have the turn 3 Ripjaw. But Commune with Dinosaurs, definitely an easy card to work on in. If you want more early game, you could go, where do you go? The Deathgorge Scavenger, also a really decent card here, being able to control the graveyard, but ultimately only having 2 toughness. I'm not a giant fan of him. Something like the Gigasaur, keep this in your mono green deck. He doesn't really fight well with the dinosaurs. Some other dinos that I like that I think honorable consideration, something like Raging Regisaur. I actually like him a lot, being able to deal 1 damage to any target with a 4-4. It doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're running a more enrage focused deck, something like lots of Ripjaw Raptors and whatnot, you can very easily continually proc your enrages, or you can ping a Planeswalker, or you can knock out tokens. Something like Raging Swordtooth, on the other hand, it has its Trample, it's 5-5, but it only deals the damage on entry, which I'm not a giant fan of. You know, by the time I'm going to drop this out, I might get a token or 2 with it. But if you're looking for value, I would say Raging Regisaur is a better consideration. I've actually been dabbling with a Enrage deck that doesn't focus around the Polyraptor Infinite combo, because I think that's kind of cheese, and he works very well in that. But anyway, that's the gist of the deck. This is a lot of fun. This deck is actually what ended up rocketing me, mostly through gold, and now pretty deep on into platinum. So we're going to see if it goes all the way up into Diamond and Mythic before this season's on out. But, you know, keeping up with the theme of dinos, I didn't think this would change very much with the the Ravnica Allegiance. So I decided to just kind of put this one up first. So either way, thanks for coming by and checking out the video. Definitely give the deck a try if you guys have any questions. As I mentioned at the start of the video, take a look at Discord. You can always reach me there. And with that being said, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys out on the battlefield.